Hi, my name is Brian Knight from Pragmatic Works, and in today's video, we're going to build an end-to-end example using SharePoint as our data source and Power Apps as our front-end application. The application we're going to build is a wellness back-to-work application for COVID-19. So stay tuned. Alright, this video is going to be a little bit longer than my normal videos because we're going to walk through an end-to-end cookbook for building an application against SharePoint and Power Apps. So there's two things our application is going to do, and it's a wellness accelerator for COVID-19. The first thing it's going to do, and this is the actual complete application here, is it's going to allow the employees to confirm the policies. This is all data-driven from SharePoint, so it's using the free version of Power Apps, well, the freemium version that's included in your Office 365 plan. So I'll go ahead and confirm the policies. The next thing it's going to do is it's going to allow me to do a well check. So I'll go ahead and self-report. Now, a few notes about this. No personal health information is actually stored. So these symptoms that I'm logging right now are not actually stored inside the SharePoint list. Only the results, the outcome of those policies are actually stored. So if I check that, we're now seeing, okay, I need to work at home because I've had some kind of exposure in the last 14 days perhaps. And if I go into, say, I just have no symptoms, then it goes green and I'm eligible to work at the office. So the picture we're seeing here is my picture, of course, but when I had much more hair, and it's just the application I can hand to the front desk reception to see if I'm eligible to work in the office or not. So these two core functionalities are part of the Power Apps for Office 365 license. In other words, you need nothing other than SharePoint to make this work and Power Apps. To tell what kind of license you have, you can hit the little gear box up top and go to Plans when you go to make.powerapps.com. And the license you're going to require at a minimum is the Power Apps for Office 365. If you have a pay license, it'll work fine, but this is going to be basically the freemium version using SharePoint as our source, which is a non-premium connector. So in other words, you can have tens of thousands of users and essentially be included in your Office license. All right, so let's see how we're going to do this. So to make this work, since I am filming this live, I have a lot of code we're going to be using to build this solution out. So because of that, I'm including a cookbook that has all the code that's ready to go. So you'll see when you download this, you'll find the link for that down in the status bar with the complete application if you want to as well. So there's two ways you can go on this journey with me. You can actually use the cookbook to build it step by step, or you can just download my application and install it, and then you're rocking and rolling, ready to go. So we'll actually start on this creating the SharePoint list in the cookbook. It's on page, typically page 3, but we might have versioned this a little bit since then. We're going to create 4 SharePoint lists in this. And you'll see the actual SharePoint list right here. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here. I'm going to copy and paste a lot of this stuff. And I wanted to make this where you can copy and paste this and get all that boring stuff very easily. So we'll create 4 lists. The first list is going to report the symptoms. The second one is where it had the list of policies. The third one is where you acknowledge those policies. And the fourth one is where you basically can go through and say whether you're eligible to work in the office or not. So let's go back to my app. I'm going to go over to the little push pin up top and go to SharePoint. And we're going to create our 4 lists now. So I'm going to start by creating a brand new site so we can kind of play here. And I'll create a team site, and we'll call this just mock-up webinar. Okay. And only members can access the site. You, of course, are going to want to make sure anybody can access the site that you want to give this application to. So now a few things about that. Your users are going to need read rights to back to the symptoms and policies, and they're going to need read-write rights to the acknowledgement and the eligibility. Okay, so just a quick heads up on that, and then I'll go ahead and hit finish. And I now have this new site out there. I'm going to go ahead and create a new list, and I'll call the first list. I'm going to just copy and paste back to work symptoms. There we go, and go ahead and create that. You, of course, don't need this in the navigation. I'm going to keep the title out here. This is required by SharePoint. You could rename it if you want to. I'm going to keep it out there and I'm going to piggyback it for other things. Like, for example, in this case, the title is going to hold my actual symptom, fever, or exposed to COVID, or whatever. But I'm going to go ahead and copy this out, and I'm going to create a new column, which is going to be choices. It's going to have these 3 choices in it: work from home, eligible, or seek medical help. So let's go ahead and add one more column. We'll make this just a choices column, and then I'll paste in my columns there, and I'll make this outcome. Okay, and I'll save that. Now we can go ahead and add whatever kind of symptoms we want to report. So I'm going to create my first one will be, how about fever? And its outcome will be, hey, don't come to the office, work from home. And then I'll create another one here that says cough. And then my last one will be no symptoms at all. So work at home. And my last one will be no symptoms. So again, you control whatever you wish here. And this will be eligible to work in the office. Oh, there we go. Cool. So this list is now done, ready to go. Let's go ahead and go back to the main site contents, and let's create our next list. So go back home. We'll go and create a new list again. And this will be a new list. This one will be policies. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and create again. Again, you don't have that shouldn't. This is a very easy one here, just a title. And we'll go ahead and create a quick record or two here. Stay 2 meters apart, or 6 feet, whatever. And then I'll go ahead and create one more. It says, how about don't come to work if you have any symptoms. Oh, helps if I can spell, and save. All right, that's good enough for the time being. Again, you can control whatever kind of policies you want that you want people to acknowledge. Again, let's go back home again, and let's create a new list again. We're almost done with these. Now we're getting to the fun ones now. So this one will be our back to work policy acknowledgement. And we have our title. Title is going to be some metadata we're going to store inside there. I now need the acknowledgement date, so I'll make this one a date time. Paste that in. Okay, I'm going to include the time just to make sure I log that. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a new column here for the actual employee that did this. That'll be a person in my case. So the cool thing about the person column, personal group column, is it allows you to have a whole bunch of extra metadata as part of that. So even though when I click on this and I click on person, for example, let me just go ahead and put some kind of fake value in there. When I click on person, go away. Okay, when I start to search for a person, like that, it will have all sorts of cool stuff as part of that. My picture, my department, what business unit I'm part of, and all that. It has some challenging things with Power Apps and that, and we'll cover those in a moment also. So that leaves me my last object I need to create, which is going to be my back to work eligibility. And this is our largest list we're going to have, but it's not too bad. All right, we're going to create that. I have my title, which is my metadata. We'll go ahead and have like the employee, of course, the check-in date of when you actually did this last. So we'll make that a date time. Now, the other column we're going to use here, I'll make this a time also. The other column we're going to use is going to be this next check-in date, and that's going to contain when should I check in next, a week from now, 3 days from now, whatever. But we're going to use that later in a future video to also key our Power Automate script off of. So you can use that to do a nudge, like something like a Power Automate notification, for example, or Power Apps notification. We can use that there also. All right, we'll go ahead and hit time on that one as well. And then my last one is the employee and the employee status. So again, my employee status will be a choices column, my employee will be a person column. So let me go ahead and cancel that and add another person column. This will be employee. And these should, of course, be required. To make these required, you go to more options, and you can say required data in this column. So you should definitely make all of these required in this case, but we're kind of going for expediency here also. Let's add our last column here, which is going to be our status. So I'll make that a choices column again, and I'll just paste in my choices that we did last time, and I'll call this just outcome, our eligibility. Let me make sure I actually get that column just right. Eligibility status. Okay, and hit save. So a few things you're going to notice here. I'm not actually logging any kind of symptoms that the employee has or student has. I'm just logging whether they're eligible to be in the office or not. We're also only going to log the last status of this. The reason why we're doing that is we want to keep our records really nice and tight, and I don't want to log the fact that that the person was sick, now they're not sick, or whatever. So I'm keeping it very, very bare minimum we have to do to log whether they're eligible or not. Okay, so if you want to do that, you can create another one that has like a running total here. And we have a much bigger example of this for this COVID example. You'll find another video that uses things like common data services. It scales a lot better, but it also requires a paid license of Power Apps also. All right, so our SharePoint is now done. Now we're ready to go ahead and spend the rest of the time actually building our full-blown application. This will be a little bit, there's 3 screens we're going to create. A main screen, one for doing the policy acknowledgement, and then the final one we're going to do is going to be for the status check. So again, it's going to be a longer video, and I apologize for that up front, but we'll go ahead and create our brand new application. And luckily, a lot of the code we're just going to copy and paste from. So I'm going to go ahead and create an application from blank. I'll make it a phone app, and I'll call this just, let's see here, I'll call it webinar COVID check or something like that. But obviously call it whatever you want the application to be called in your environment. So with that now done, I'm making mine a phone application, but it will work on a PC, on a Mac, on a tablet or whatever. But it's going to be optimized for that employee that was walking up to the reception desk to show the reception that he or she is eligible to be in the office. Okay, first thing I always like to do when I start the application is I like to go ahead and set a whole bunch of variables first. Now, if I scroll down here, you'll see creating a solution. Scroll down, you'll see a list of the variables right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the app on start. Now these variables are going to do a few things here. I'm going to kind of zoom in a little closer so you can see this. First of all, it's going to create some color patterns that we're going to use. Now I use, and you'll see the cookbook here, I use color-hex.com to come up with this color palette. And you can find your own as well, but I went and put comments in all of these so you can see what it actually does. The last variable, I'll actually jump over here so you can see this. Let me go to my app here. Okay, and it says on start right now. I'm going to paste in my variables I did from that area there. Okay, and the first thing you'll notice is I'm getting an error right now, and that's because I don't have this connection that it needs. So let's go back to the connections, and we'll come back to this in a moment. To create our connection, we'll go to Data Sources. I'll go to Connectors, and then I'm going to go ahead and see all connectors and search for SharePoint. In my case, I already have a SharePoint connector, so I'm going to select that SharePoint connector. And I'll select the SharePoint connector again. But again, you would not likely see all connectors. Then I'm going to go ahead and look for that stupid gallery I created a moment ago, which is mockup webinar. Let me go ahead and just kind of paste that in here. I'm going to go ahead and paste this URL you see right here in. And go back over to here, paste that in. Oh, there we go, hit connect. And now I'm seeing my 4 lists that I had. So I'll check those 4 lists and hit connect. Once I do that, it adds it all here, and then you're seeing my code, actually the red underlines went away now also. So here's what this code's going to do. First of all, the first line is going to be a primary color I'm going to use for my headers and my footers and those kind of things. The accent color is going to be for my buttons, okay? And then lastly, my background color is the overall background of the application, and I'm going to use white to kind of pop out of that background color. The last thing is my email address. So this is it's going to be using the user function right here to put the email address into a variable. And the reason I'm doing that is ultimately to prevent things like delegation events. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But when I use this code right here instead of the variable, it creates some performance problems, some delegation problems inside of SharePoint. That's why I'm using it here. And then our second to last variable here is the acknowledgement complete. Has this person finished acknowledging the company policies? So I'm doing a lookup against my acknowledgement table. I'm passing in that variable. Now, here's what I mean. If I were to go over inside of here and change this to the same exact code, you'll notice that I get a delegation warning, which basically means it's having to go out and do all the work on the app tier instead. So if I paste in that variable, my problem goes away. So this is saying every time the application opens up, it'll see have you actually acknowledge your company policies. The last variable is how often do you want your employees to check in? I'm saying every 7 days, but that's completely up to you. So what you would have to set is the number of days, and you set your color scheme up top here of what you want your different colors to be. Okay, so I went more of a blue palette in my case. So first step I'll do is I'll go over to my tree view. I'm going to change the name of this screen by double clicking on it to SCR main. And then I'm going to give it a background color of some sort. So you'll see the fill on the right side. If I select fill, it then changes the fill up top here. So I'm going to go to my fill property for SCR main, and I'll call this var background. Here we go. And it looks like nothing has actually happened, and that's a valid point. In a moment, when I drop the first object in here, you'll see it turns gray at that point. So I'll go ahead and insert a label up top. There we go. All right, let's kind of stretch this across. And let's go ahead on this label. This will be my header, so I'll go ahead and call this LBL header, for example, if you want. It's completely optional. And I'll call this, COVID wellness check. Something like that. All right, you can go ahead and center it if you want, or do any of those kind of things if you want to make it prettier. I'll make mine a little bolder here and go with a 24 font maybe. And then I'll also make my fill color. Again, the fast way to jump to that is just click on fill and then just type in var primary. Now the first thing you're noticing maybe, and I'll make my text also white text also. First thing you're noticing here is it's black. I thought you said, Brian, it's what? It should be a blue palette, and where's my background? Well, the reason why this is happening right now is I haven't run my app on start. So there's two ways of doing that. I can go ahead and close this app out, open it up again, then app on start will run. Or I can select the little ... and hit run on start. This is the one next to the app. When I do that, you'll notice my background goes gray and my color goes kind of a dark teal color at this point. Now at this point, we've done enough now. We probably want to go ahead and save this. So let's go ahead and do a file and save. You can go ahead and call this whatever you wish. I'm going to go ahead and go and file and save. I'm going to go with more of a green color for health. And you can, of course, change your icon. I also have a little icon you can steal as well. It's going to be under, I think it's under medical. There it is. And I've got a well check one. I've got different color icons inside of here. Oh, there they are, but they're SVG. I'll add some extra colors in here so you can go in there as well. But I have a JPEG file that you can use in your application if you wish also. And I'll go with the color green, and then I'll go ahead and hit save. Okay, so that way if the application were to break tomorrow or middle of our build process, we can go back and restore that, and you'll notice it actually keeps version control of all this also. And I realize I'm going fast. That's why you can pause the video and rewind me at any time also. And it's also why you can go to that cookbook, and everything is in that cookbook. Again, that download is in the comment section down below. So I'm copying and pasting from a lot of code that you can just go to that cookbook and copy and paste from. All right, our next step, I'm going to go ahead and drop in a picture of the person that signed in. So I'll do that by going over to media and then image. I'll make this a nice big picture so they know that the security desk knows who's actually walking up. And then I'll go to user dot, this is the actual image now, the image property. So I'm going to property drop down box for that image, and I'll do user open close parenthesis dot image. Again, this is in the cookbook as well. I'll make it a little bigger like this, and then I'm going to change the property from fit to fill. Okay. I realize it's not perfect here by any means, especially that I got this picture that you got to look at for the next 5 minutes. But this is basically going to fill the space. So now the security person can look at this and say, all right, Brian, obviously is the same guy I'm looking at right now. Is he eligible to be back at work right now or not? All right, let's go back to our cookbook. What is our next step here? So we got our app on start. We now are working on our main screen. We now have the My Mug in there right now. Now, we also want to do some work that whenever the screen opens up, we want to run a few variables here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this block of code that you're seeing right here. Okay? And this is going to be whenever the screen first opens up, not when the app opens up, but when the screen opens up, I want to run some code to see, are you eligible to work or not? It's going to create some variables also. So to do that, I'll select my screen. I'm going to go over to the onVisible property, and I'm going to paste in that code you saw a moment ago. Okay, here's what this code's going to do. It's going to create a variable if it doesn't exist already, saying safe to work. It's going to see, am I actually in that table, am I eligible to work, be at work right now? So it's going to look at my status from that table using the lookup function. After that, if it can't find a record, or if it says, hey, my next check-in date is already passed, then it's going to go ahead and set that variable to well check status required. Okay, so that's what those two pieces are going to do. So with that now done, I'm going to drop in a label again, and then we'll put that right smack dab here, use it across the whole thing. Go back to my cookbook, and for that label, it's going to be the text property here. I'm going to copy and paste this code. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead to my text property for the label, and I'm going to paste in this code. So now you're already seeing well check status required because that doesn't have a record for me. This is a brand new SharePoint list now. Let's of course make this big, make it bold because this needs to be seen by a security person. So I'll go 28 font, 25 font, whatever you want. Make it center. You can clean that up however you wish. Again, let's make this application your own. So just kind of an accelerator to kind of get you going here. So next, I want to change the color, the fill of that, to be equal to either green or yellow. So I'll just paste in this code here. There we go. So this, again, this is the fill color for this text block here. So I'll go over to my fill property. You can again select it over here as well. I'm then going to paste in the code, and you'll see it's going to do two things. All this is doing is saying, all right, if you are eligible to work in the office, it turns light green. Otherwise, it stays yellow. So really easy for your reception desk to see and the employee to see. So now I need two buttons inside of here. You can do these buttons however you want. If you want to do a button, that's fine. If you want to, I've actually included some images if you prefer to do the images also. So I'm going to go over to my media library here, and I'm going to upload two images I'm going to use. So I have under my downloads and my medical one. This will be in your zip file. So in the zip file that has the application, that has a cookbook, you're going to find these two images right here. Go ahead and open those up, and there they are. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on these to bring them in. There we go. I've got the first one in, and get the second one. Okay, perfect. Shrink it down however you wish. Okay. Now, there's a number of ways we can do this. I prefer to make it a button so I can disable it and disable the whole block of code once I know they've done the check-in. So I'm going to go ahead and reverse these two, by the way, since I know my well check will be on the right and my code will be on the bottom side. So what I'm going after here is I'm going after this right here. I want this white button that kind of pops out with confirm policies or well check. Okay, so that's what I'm going after here. So let's go ahead and drop our button in. Okay, and we'll get one button working relatively well. I'm going to create a little bit of wiggle room here so we can see the background behind it and make it nice and nice white background here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my text in that button first of all. Here we go. And once I've done that, make the fill color white. So I'll go back to my color here and go to white. That's the color of the button now. And then I'm going to right click on it and say reorder it, and I want to send this button into the background. There we go. And then now we can go ahead and kind of get that however you want it. It looks about right, and for the purpose of this video, you guys can be picky later, but for the purpose of this video, this should work out well. Now we need some text underneath it. Let's go ahead and drop in some text. Okay, and I'll put confirm policies. There we go. Okay, helps if I can spell policies. Now, guys, I'm doing this live. I'm not going to do a whole lot of editing on this video, so we may see some interesting codes, some interesting misspellings here also. Let's go ahead and center that. All right, now that I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste these two objects here, boom and boom, over to the right side. And we'll come back to that in a moment here. But now that I've done that, we want to go ahead and do a few things. I'm going to go ahead and group all these together. So in my tree view here, notice if I hold down the shift key, set the button, select the text, select the text, select the button. I have all three selected now. I'm going to right click on them, and I'm going to say group. So now it looks like one big object that I can disable or enable. I can have one big link on it. And of course you can do things like fix that color also. It's a hover property you can do to fix that. I'm not going to worry about that for the purpose of this video, but we can do that also. Likewise over here, let me go ahead and reorder this button to send that backwards. There we go. And I need to kind of recenter all this mess. I won't be too picky right now, but you notice if I set the image, I got to find the right image. There it is. Center it. Call it a day. Okay, and again, you're gonna select all three. Oops, that, and then group this as well. Okay, and again, we're doing that, so now I can move it as a unit. Oop, I can move it as a unit now. There we go. And we can also link it as a unit as well. So I have two groups. We'll call this first, this right group here, group, not policies, but we're going to call it group, and this one is status. And on the left side, we'll call that one group and policies. Good enough. And inside the label here, I just realized I had the wrong label. We want to change that label from confirm policies to status wellness check. Okay, good enough. All right, so we can of course tweak all that, but it looks like it's pretty good. It's not the prettiest application yet, but it's getting there. All right, so our next step is we want to wire this button up to only conditionally allow you to click on it. So if there's if I already confirmed the policies, I don't want to have to go out and confirm those policies again. So again, in your cookbook, you'll be able to scroll down and you'll see here what this code is doing. If I select this grouping right here, I'll select the whole group. I'm then going to go into something called display mode property for the entire group. I'll paste this in, and it's now going to conditionally allow me to edit the text or not. So if the var acknowledgement complete is true, then meaning I've already acknowledged it, then it's going to disable the button. Otherwise, it's going to enable the button for editing, meaning I can click on it. Okay. So super simple as far as that goes. This is how you can conditionally turn on buttons or turn off buttons. All right, we are now rocking and rolling. Let's go ahead and make our second screen. We can, of course, put a footer on this and add a little spice to it. This is what the complete version looks like here. You can see it looks a little cleaner, but all in all, for live, we're doing pretty well here so far. Let's go ahead and create a new screen. All right, create a new screen. Again, if you wanted to, you can go to your fill color for that screen and change that fill color to var background. There we go. Kind of looks like it's very consistent now. You may also decide to go ahead and slap a label up top. We also can use components to make this a little bit easier also. We'll go ahead and call this one, this will be policy acknowledgement. Okay, again, I'm going to misspell some words in this because I am rushing and trying to make this video not take 3 hours for you. The fill color again will be var primary this time. There we go. And the text for this button will be white. Okay, good enough. Oh, we also want to make it bold because it's kind of hard to see, and we'll make it whatever size font you want to. Okay. So this is going to be a simple gallery in this case. We also, first of all, wanted to rename the screen so you keep consistent with me. In the cheat sheet here, you'll see I'm going to use the name of the cheat sheet, confirm policies. Okay, so I'll just double click on it, and let's type in that. Okay. So, and the reason I want you to be consistent with me is because we're going to use navigate functions and all that, and we're going to need that screen name to match up. If it doesn't, then it's okay. Just you all know what you changed in your case. So lastly, let's go and drop in a gallery. This gallery is, if you don't see gallery here, look on the right, and you might see a drop-down box because your resolution is a little bit lower. In that case, go ahead and hit the drop-down box, and then select gallery from there instead. But in my case, it's right here. I'm going to do a blank gallery in my case. There we go. I'm going to point to policies, back to work policies. There we go. And with that now done, I'm going to kind of make it a little bit bigger here, about that size. I'll make a white background to it so it kind of stands out. Okay. Now, we've got the core now done. Let's go ahead and drop inside the first item. So click on it, it says add first item. Make sure you select it. Otherwise, it's going to give you some goofiness here. So go ahead and drop that in. I'm going to insert a label. There we go. And then immediately recognize, well, what do you want to, the only column I know about is this this policy column, this title column. So it's using this item.title, which is the same column you saw before, the primary field in SharePoint. You can then shrink this a little bit if you want to kind of, again, the whole box, not the text box, but the whole box here. And it kind of shrinks it down a little bit. And if you want to, you can also add things like a little checkbox in here and those kind of things. If you want to add an icon with a little checkbox, you can do that as well. A few gotchas on the checkboxes. Make sure, first of all, that if you select the gallery and do a checkbox, make sure that you actually have the item selected. See how I put it outside the gallery? So make sure you select the actual item, the text box, and then do your icon, and it will put the icon for each row at that point. Okay, so with that now done, we want to go ahead and confirm the customer, or the employee, or whoever understands the policies. So let's go ahead and do an input, and I'm going to make sure I have nothing selected. Go to Insert, Input, and then I'll do a checkbox. There we go. We'll put our policies inside this checkbox, and I do need to shrink this down just a little bit, so I need to leave room for 2 buttons here. For the option, I'll say, I understand the company wellness policies, and we'll do my best to comply. And we'll do my best to comply, or whatever you want your policy statement to say. Okay? So once they do that, we want to go ahead and drop in 2 buttons. I'll drop in 1 and 2. One will be a cancel button, so they can abort mission if they want, cancel. And the other one will be a confirm button. There we go. I'll make this one a red icon so it kind of stands out. They know they're canceling. There we go. And I'll make this one I'll make this fill color. I'll click on fill. It jumps right to the property. And I'll make that var accent. There we go. All right, so now we can see why we use those variables, because if I'm going to call out those icons over and over again, I don't want to have to go ahead and search for them. One of the things you may also want to do is make the font a little bigger. You find whatever standard font size works for you, whatever you can fit inside this, and you're rocking and rolling. Now, the last thing I care about on this screen is if I check this icon, if it's not checked, I don't want to have this confirm button lit up. And we're going to use similar code to what we used in the last time. I'm going to scroll down. So first of all, the cancel button is going to be this navigate function. So I'll just wire this cancel button. I'm going to do the on select. Okay, on select. I'll paste in my code. Now the cancel button now goes to the right spot. For my confirm button, though, I don't want to allow you to confirm unless you've actually checked that button. So the first thing to make this work, you need to make sure that your checkbox is called check confirm, CHK confirm. So I'm going to go to that checkbox and make sure that actually fits that. So when I go to my checkbox, I'll double click on it to rename it. Check policy confirm, I think what it was. There we go. And then when I select this confirm button, I'll go over to, again, display mode property and paste in that code. And as you can see, it's not working because I did not label it right. It should be called not check policy confirm, but check confirm. So let me go over here again and just take out that word policy. CHK, or CHK confirm. I think it's CHK, wasn't it? Okay, there we go. So now as soon as I do that, it reevaluates the code, and now it lights up or it doesn't light up. Perfect. Awesome. So at this point, we have a relatively good application. So the last thing I want to do is actually make it where this confirm button actually does something, right? And so we'll go over to our on select event, and we want to write back to the database. Now we can use a form. We can make this little checkbox represent our form, or in most cases, when you have this stuff like this, you're going to use a patch statement. And a patch statement is used to be very specific about what you want to insert. So I'm going to go over to on select of that checkbox. You'll see my code right now says false, which means nothing is going to happen. Now this code is rather large, and let me go ahead and paste all this in, and we'll explain it. Again, so the code I'm hopping in right after display, again, walks you step by step how to do this in this cookbook here for you. And we have a little bit of weirdness here, and the weirdness we're seeing right now is because I'm missing one connector. I have not added my Office 365 users connector. So I'm going to go back to my little database icon, and I'm going to go to connectors, and I see it right here, but if you don't see that, go ahead and go to see all connectors and search for Office 365 users. I'm going to select mine and select it again here, and now it's going to import it, and now my red underline, my errors, all went away now. Okay, and you'll see right here, Office 365 users, that's my connector name, and it matches the name you see on the left here also. So if yours is different, it shouldn't be different, but if it is different, make sure these names tie together. Okay, so the function I'm using here, in this big block of code here, is my profile. So I'm trying to get the user that signed in, their profile, and get their title, their job title, their email address, their department they work for, and all that stuff is coming over with it. So when you want to store when you store a person inside of SharePoint, you got to do basically an OData string like you're seeing right here. And inside that, definitely copy and paste this, because this is not something you're going to memorize very easily. You have to put all these columns inside of here. And if you're missing one like I did right here, I will kill this and kill that X right there. You'll notice that it immediately fails. It wants to see at a minimum the columns I have right here. Okay, so the patch statement. First of all, the patch statement is what it's doing is it's saying, I want to patch into this policy acknowledgement table. Defaults means take the defaults of SharePoint. What are the default column names? So it's going to use, in this case, it's going to do an insert because it can't find the record. So it's going to insert a record, but patch can either be an insert or an update. In my case, it's going to do an insert. And it's going to be the title column be confirmation from Brian Knight on this day. The date is going to be now. See, this is basically saying it needs a record to do in. That's what these semicolons represent a record. And you'll see it actually showing it right here up top. It's showing record. After that, it's done. So it's going to wrap all this stuff up. It's going to set that variable var acknowledge complete to true. So that way you don't have to close the app and open up again. And then it's going to navigate back to the home screen. So let's see how this looks now. I'm going to check that box, hit confirm. And it's going to save it, navigate back, and now I can't check this button anymore. By the way, I'm holding the Alt key down to kind of play with the app, or I can hit this little play button up here to do this as well. Okay, so with that now done, you're seeing the data looks to be good. So if I go back over to my data source here, and I select back to work policy acknowledgement, there is my record, hopefully. There it is, confirmation from Brian Knight on this day. And the employee's name was Brian Knight. So we're seeing all the record looks to be working. So we have one more screen left to finish up our example. Awesome. We're doing a pretty good job so far, I think. So if we scroll down to our cookbook here, we're seeing we're now on our status screen, which is going to be called this name right here. So let's go ahead and create one more screen. A few ways you can do it. I'm going to go ahead and just piggyback my old data here. So I'm going to go back to back to my confirmation screen that we created earlier. And I'm going to select it and do a duplicate just to keep it a little bit simpler here for me. And then now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and double click in it, rename it to the name that you saw in the cookbook, SCR WellNet. And I'm going to kill the gallery you see right here. And I'm going to rename this like well check, status report or something like that. Whatever you want to call it for your piece. And you don't need the checkbox either. All right, so this is roughly what we're going to want to see now. In this case, the gallery is going to be a little bit different. In this case, our gallery is going to use a list of symptoms that the employee might have. So we're going to display buttons that they can disable and turn on the different symptoms, and that information is not going to get logged, but the outcome of that symptom will be logged for today's date only. All right, so let's go back here again, and let's drop in a new gallery. Again, I'm going to go to Insert, Gallery, and I'll do a blank gallery in my case again. I'm going to point it to back to work symptoms. There we go. Make it work a little bit how you want here, however what size you want. I like to leave a little bit of gray space on all sides. And then one of the neat things you can do, one of the tricks you can do to make it look a little more interactive so they're not having to go out and actually select different things is I want to make this feel like a button. They can just tap, tap, tap and hit confirm and be all done. So I don't want them to actually have to hit drop down boxes or any of those kind of things. So to do that, I'm going to hit insert and add an item. I'm going to go to insert and button. There we go. And you'll see 3 buttons. And those 3 buttons match the 3 symptoms we created earlier inside of SharePoint: fever, cough, and no symptoms. Okay, so I'll make this a little bit bigger. And I'll shrink down the outer box here so it kind of butts up against each other here. You can kind of wire it up and get it however you want, whatever kind of real estate you want to save is completely up to you. Okay, a few things I'm going to do personally here. I'm going to go to my fill color first of all, and I'm going to make it var accent. There we go. So it looks a little cleaner now. And again, you can make this as wide as you want. It depends on how wide those symptoms, how much words you're putting inside each symptom. My text for the button. So I'm going to go to my text property here for the first button. Okay. Now, first of all, make sure you select the first button. If I select the second button, it selects the whole gallery. By selecting the first button, it picks a template here in this case. And I'm going to make this item dot title. Okay. That matches what you saw back here, the title column. Okay, so now fever, cough, and symptom now. Okay, looking pretty good. Now if you check one of those, and again, if you don't like that blue that's showing up here, if you want it to be a different color, like maybe a black or whatever, that's a property. It's called, you'll see it over here, it's called a whole bunch of hover colors here. And there's one called hover fill colors. I'm gonna go over here on the button and you'll see hover fill. And you can just change that to whatever you wish. I'll make mine black, for example. Ooh, not black, not back, but black. Okay, so now when I hover over it, it actually looks like this. Okay, So for the fill color though, you want it to dynamically look different based on what somebody has selected. So if they've checked fever, I want it to change color so the user knows they actually checked it successfully. So to do that, I'm going to select this fever icon right here. I'm going to go to my fill color for this. Okay, which we already been to once. And for the fill color, right now it's var accent, but I want that to be dynamic. So again, in your cookbook over here, if you scroll down, this is how we can do it. So let me go ahead and copy this block of code that you see right here into my fill color. There we go. Oh, sorry, let me cancel that real quick. I think that's actually, okay. Okay, so what this is actually, I'm actually wrong, excuse me. This is going to be not the fill color, this is going to be the on select event of the button. So let's go and actually change that to on select. So the on select event of the button, paste that code in, and here's what this is doing. This is saying, hey, if this item is selected, then go ahead. If it's already in my collection, so I'm creating a collection here. The collection is called Call Symptom Checker. Okay. And I'm putting the row into that collection. That collection is a local collection, like an array, or like a local database, essentially, that's storing the row inside that. So if you check that, it's going to put that row into that local collection. If you check it again, if it's already in the collection, then go ahead and remove it. Remove this item from the collection. So you'll notice as I check fever, for example, and no symptoms, which doesn't make sense, but I'll go to View and Collections, and you'll see the two rows in there now. So the entire row for fever and no symptoms is now in there. Okay? So we've got that now in the, and if I check it again, fever again, and go to Collections, you'll now see only one row is in there. Now, the user is not going to understand it's in a collection, it's magically in there, and it's, trust me, it's in there. You need to give them some kind of visual cue as well. So I'm going to select fever here, go over to fill again, and now let's go ahead and put our code inside there. So if we scroll down, there's my code for this. I'm going to go ahead and select it. And for my fill color, paste in that color. And now we can see that if this item is in the collection, if the row that I have selected is in the collection, if the row is in the collection, then go ahead and make it var accent. Otherwise, make it var primary color. So this is what it looks like. So if I hold down the Alt key, click on fever, it's now removed. It's now in there. No symptoms are now in there. So you'll see it kind of unselect it and check it each time. Now, if you want one more cue, you might also want to have a checkbox in there also. So I'm going to go ahead and put an icon and go to a checkbox here. I'm going to put it right inside, and I'm going to make mine white now also. Okay. So in this case, for the checkbox, if you want to make that conditional, whether that checkbox shows or not, I'm going to go, and you can copy and paste this from the cookbook, but I'm going to go to my visible property of that checkbox, and it's very similar code to what you saw before. And that code is, all right, if this item is in the collection, then let's make it true. Otherwise, let's make it false. Okay, this is the old code I went and copied in. This is only if you want to have that checkbox in. So now, as I select them, the checkbox goes away. That's the default state right there. And this is the state that cough is now selected. Okay, so again, what you do is you just check the checkbox, and if this item is in the collection, then it will actually show the checkbox. Otherwise, it will hide the checkbox. So we should see two items in our collection, and in our view and in collections, we can see our two items right here. Cough and fever, cough and fever. Okay, so far so good. Now the big block of code we have left now, and that's that confirm button. Now this confirm button is going to have a whole mess of code we have to do now. We can also hide this and say, hey, there's no items in there. You can hide this button or not allow somebody to click on it maybe as an optional thing. But in our case, we'll go down here, and you'll see it's a lot of code we're about to copy in. And don't worry, I'm going to walk through it all. So I'm going to go ahead and copy in this entire chunk of code, and it's doing a lot of logic inside of here. So I'll go to my confirm. I'll get rid of the old confirm code, paste in the new confirm code. It looks like it's happy right now because it looks like it is happy right now. So here's what we want to do. Okay, so what's happening here is behind the scenes, whatever your worst condition was, take the outcome of that, So if it was, hey, seek medical help, don't come in the office, or whatever's the worst condition, it's gonna allow the user to, when they check that, not come in the office because of that. So in other words, if I happen to check no symptoms and I have a fever, which you shouldn't be able to do, but let's imagine that, it's gonna assume the fever is the worst condition and I should not come to work because of that. Okay, so, and you can see that here. Let me get rid of my face here so you can see all the code here. Okay, so in this case, we're seeing, hey, we'll start with, hey, you're eligible to come to the office. That's the starting ground. However, if in my collection, I count the rows and I see you've got something that has work at home as the outcome, then, hey, no. I'm going to overwrite that variable and I'm going to say you must work at home. If I count again and something has seeks medical help, then I'm going to overwrite the variable again and say seek medical help. So it's in order, it's in hierarchy order here, saying going from the easiest, which is come to work, you're eligible to work at home, to now the hardest also. So it kind of navigates up and down that now. But now the hard work. The hard work is I need to go ahead and say, hey, if you've already done a status report, let me go ahead and update your existing status report. And if you haven't done a status report, go ahead and do an insert the first time. So that's what we're going to see next. This is a lot of code here, and all I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, if there's no record in the table here, if there's no record for the back to work eligibility that matches up to your VAR user email address, okay? So so I'm basically looking at this table here. Let me go back here again under eligibility. If there's no record in here for Brian Knight, then go ahead and run this code. And this code is using the defaults command like you saw before to basically create the record. Okay, so it's saying the title will be status from Brian Knight on this day. The eligibility date will be today. The next check-in, the status will be whatever the variable was. And then so this is how you do the drop the choices option here. Value, and then whatever the variable was. The next one is, I'm saying when do you have to check in again? Next check-in date is going to be whatever today's date is, and add the 7 to it. That 7 you saw on that first screen, 7 days. Then the employee is that same code you saw before. The only other difference here is if they already do have a status report, then I'm going to go ahead and look up their status report, and I'm going to update the status report with the same data you saw before, but now it's an update versus an insert, and I'm doing that with this lookup command right here to get to identify the record for Brian Knight. Then I go ahead and clear that temporary collection with all the pieces. I'll navigate to the other screen, and then I'm done. Let's give this a quick test drive. Oh, I'm actually getting an error here. Let's debug what this error looks like here. Okay. The error in this case is because I had this status on it saying if the confirm. So it's always going to be edit. So I'm going to go ahead and take out that. Again, so the reason I got the error in this case, and get rid of the error, that comma. The reason I got the error is because on my confirm button, because I copied and pasted a screen or duplicated a screen, I went to display mode, and display mode should be display mode.edit, meaning I can actually click on that button. Okay, so that's why we actually saw that. But we could go and actually say, hey, the count rows is nothing, then don't allow them to actually do the confirm. So we could do that. We could go here and say, hey, if they don't check anything, then don't even show that button. That's our next option. But if I go to confirm, all right, let's see what happens. Takes a few seconds. See the little ants up there? We can see now that I'm eligible to work at home now. And if I go back to my table here, I'm going to refresh this screen. We'll then see that a status report has been written. Let's go back and do a new status report. Oh, I made a mistake here. Let me go ahead and do that. Oh, notice that the navigations are not working right now. Let's fix that also. Let's select the whole group, and we'll go ahead and tell it to navigate by going to Action, and navigate over to not the confirm policies, but the well check. And then it's going to write that code for me on the whole group. When I say that, there we go. Let's go over to on select of that. There it is. And you'll see it actually navigate into that well check. Same thing for the confirm policies. We'll go ahead and go to Action. We'll go to Navigate, and we'll confirm policies, fade, whatever kind of effect you want to do. And now that one is done. You can tell by setting the whole group, going to on select the whole group, and you'll see it has a navigate code there now also. Now that navigate code is not going to work right now if I go to the play button because I've already confirmed policies. That's why I'm not seeing it now. But if I go to well check, there we go. We're now seeing I can go ahead and select fever, hit confirm. Oh, it's going to tell me to work at home again. Let me try something that's a little more forgiving. No symptoms, confirm, and now I get green. And each time I do that, it's not adding a row, it's only putting the current row. So now if I refresh the screen again, I'll now see eligible to work in the office. We are done. Great job, guys. If you've made it this far with me, fantastic job. You can also, again, download my application. And if you download my application, there's instructions on how to import it inside the Cookbook. There's some additional things that you might want to do as well. I created a Power Automate to loop over the employees and find out who's eligible, who needs a check-in, and I raise a data alert also. That's in the piece as well. So if you want that, you can download that as well. It's part of my files. And my email address is on the screen in case you need that as well. If you have any questions, feel free to put in the chat in the box down below. If this was useful to you, let me know what kind of features you want added to this accelerator. And if this was useful to you, if you want to see other accelerators, let us know by adding that in the comments section down below also. We're going to add one here soon for gamification of the classroom to let people kind of do that. Again, there's a few ways you can make this a little more scalable. SharePoint does have some limitations. Once you get into the 5,000-10,000 range, you're going to start to see a little bit of a slowdown inside of SharePoint. But because I want to make this for small, medium businesses that don't necessarily have to have a premium license of Power Apps, I chose that direction. However, if you want, I also put in the chat, in the comment section down below, the more premium solution, which will scale for hundreds of thousands of employees if you wanted to also. So either way, and that other solution has some extra features in as well, like shared space pieces as well. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, let us know your feedback. Please do give us a thumbs up, and please do subscribe if you want to find out when we release other types of accelerators like this. Again, this accelerator is free to use. There's no, if you have Power Apps already for Office 365, everything you need is under the sun there. This is also we do a lot of training on Pragmatic Works. We have thousands of hours on YouTube, but we also do training and consulting as well. So if you'd like to find out how we can help you build your own application or how to customize this application, let us know at pragmaticworks.com, and have a great day, and thanks for joining me today. Bye-bye.